we can all have our opinions on things, but man, does it feel good to just say, screw those naysayers. I do think there is a night and day difference between the second half of Ossan Newbie and the first half, but the first half was comedy gold, man. It just had that old school 90s feel, and it was so hilarious to see Rick just go through this world, and yes, like many people, expecting him to be a pretty clueless character, but then very quickly, they changed course and let Rick know his strength, and it's just like, it became much more interesting. But to see what they did with the Coliseum, and they did exactly what I think they needed to for a final episode. You give Rick his signature skill that he's only ever used, as far as we know, in the flashback. Or at least that's the only time we've seen it. It's essentially plot armor. It's when he faces an opponent stronger than himself, he fires up and to do it. But unlike most shows with essentially a similar gimmick, the idea of what is essentially a tie between him and Brodston is perfect, because Rick falls first, followed by Brodston. And despite him saying, I think Rick won, at the end of the day it felt like a double knockout, and I think that's appropriate. Because at the end of the day, Rick can surpass everyone in his group, but his base level isn't currently the strongest among the group. And the idea of how they handled that to just pure fisticuffs, nothing, no gimmicks, and just to see how he wanted to give his master a fight, and how his master, Brodston, just looks at the group and being like, you know, I really haven't been alone. I've had this family this whole time. It's just so freaking perfect. And if I could only criticize one thing about this episode, justice for the hot springs. No, those full live reactions over on Patreon. If you want to see my full length thought to any of these Ossan Newbie adventure episodes over there exclusively. So, I love the idea that our girl comes in saying, Rick, you're supposed to take me to the hot springs. And he's like, I lost. He's like, no, you didn't, boss. But here's the thing. Essentially, the title ended up going to Kelvin because neither one of them wanted the title, which is understandable. They don't want to hold the crown. So essentially, all the prizes would have went to him. I'm sure he could have asked for the tickets for the hot springs, but they do something that is nice, though. It's about how, like, hey, someday I will take you. But for right now, the only reason I'm really rushing against my boss here is because I don't want to get into 100 times the training. So, adios. It's just so funny. They did something that was very special, though, and that is how they produced it. So when you look at the Kelvin fight, completely different animation style, completely different energy to what we had with Rick and Brodston, because we just, you know, the idea of the sideways thumbs up, it's like that ultimate sign of respect there, right? Like saying, I'm challenging you, we're going to be on equal playing fields. All they did for most of the fight was just punch. There was no, like, if Rick would have used all his bells and whistles that he's learned, would he maybe have been able to win? It's possible. In terms of not passing out as well, it's possible. But I like to believe that, as it stands, Rick at his full potential is enough to take out his master with him. That's kind of how I feel about his level. And the idea that they are just beating the living... This is monkey brain, man. This is them. There's no thought. There's no strategy. It's, I'm going to hit as hard as I can, and you're going to hit as hard as you can. In terms of speed, Rick is faster. In terms of power, Brodston is stronger. And just, they did such a good job. And it's weird, because I liked how this show looked in the first half. Prior to the Coliseum stuff, I liked how this show looked. It had a 90s feel, and the animation, while not always going Sakuga, it had that old school charm. I've compared it before, but something similar to how Hulk from last year handled their stuff. But unlike Hulk, this show got better with time, man, because this shit was polished. You kept up with the fights. Like, at times I'm feeling like I'm watching JoJo characters spam their stand attacks, and then at other points it's just super precise, heavy-hitting punches. And when they went into the aura, our boy, like, he gets thrown through all the seats, and he's like barely standing. And then of course, you know, they kept it a secret that he could, you know, he's been honing it. He activates his skill. It's basically like Ash Ketchum doing his one last twist in the baseball cap and just giving one last final hurrah. It looked incredible, and I love the idea that for Brodston, it's just him in muscular form. There's no aura going off. It's just he's him energy. And then for Rick, you have this exploding aura, which just looks so cool. And they did a fantastic job. There's not a single complaint I have about this episode. There was some laughs. There was some, oh my god, is he going to win? Is he going to lose? I really thought for a bit there that they were just going to commit to Rick winning fully. But no, like, they did the appropriate thing. And What's interesting about this show is I could honestly leave this season never touching more episodes and be 100% satisfied with the journey. Is the story ongoing? Of course. They have 2 out of 6 of the jewels that they're looking for. There is still like an actual long-term story, but you can't really look at me and say, if this was a show that never got renewed for more, that you feel it's incomplete. Like, but here's the thing, like, you never fully see people's lives from beginning to end. It's very rare you do. Like, even in video games, man, like, if you played the Assassin's Creed game, Ezio, if you watch, there's actually a film that does his death. Like, there's very little times you get to see a full character's life, and even then, you don't see every single piece along the way. So the idea that they're going after some jewels, I mean, once they complete that, I'm sure there's other things they'll do. They'll have slice of life adventures. I'm okay leaving it here because I feel like we leave off knowing there's a romance brewing and is going to get committed to long term. Rip Angelica, she ain't going to do that. We know Angelica's going to end up training. The people in the party, it's just, you feel good. Like, you don't feel like you were blue balls, and it showed you everything you needed to. And it's good that they showed Rick's signature skill, because it does show that, like, yeah, like, he is going to surpass them all in time. It's just going to take a bit. They just did exactly what they needed to, and I really wouldn't change a thing. Though I do have a question. So, we know, you know, brother ended up betting on other brother to win, lost a lot of money, and obviously lost the fiance. How much money, because I'm pretty sure he's involved with the Coliseum, right? Or, like, who's repairing the Coliseum? Because that's a lot of money in damages. Maybe it's in the contract that, you know, you're not liable for anything, but still, you have to imagine, if it's not the lizard bro having to pay for it, whoever is paying for the damages, that's a lot of damages. Like, it got so bad they had to warp the crowd out of the stands because otherwise they would die. You can't say this episode didn't live up to expectations. It pretty much shattered and surpassed them the way they shattered and, destroyed the barrier that was supposed to protect the general crowd. This was a 10 out of 10 anime for me. I think this is a certified masterpiece. I think this and I Parry Everything, wow. Those 2 shows literally started off so similar, and I think we all expected them to just be 2 dumb characters in a funny show. I like that formula. Both took off in completely different directions and did something truly wonderful with that formula. And man, if they confirm a season 2, I will be right here ready to watch. But if not, this actually does have an open-ended, conclusive feel to it that I can kind of vibe with. Thoughts down below. What did you think of the episode, the fight, and the season overall? Let me know. Be sure to leave a like if you enjoyed, subscribe if you're new around here. Of course, ring that bell. And like I mentioned, we have those full live reactions over on Patreon. And hey, while you're over there, I'll also give you a video shout out. Alright, so today we got Selkie, Pixcalibur, Sign, Teeny Bopper, and we also have Ashless. So I appreciate the support, everyone. Please take care, and you'll have a good one.